We're going to talk Alabama recruiting in this video because they are on a march for number one. Of course, Ohio State in the number one spot right now, but Alabama has been red hot all summer. What they did in June has only carried over into July, and there are some big decisions going down this weekend that could impact Alabama recruiting. We're going to talk about it with Bama Online's Tim Watts. But before we get going, Alabama fans, we need you. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're trying to grow this page. We are the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, and we need Bama fans to be a part of it, so hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in my guy Tim Watts. And Tim, we got some decisions looming that could very well vault Alabama into the number one spot. So let's talk about it. All right, this weekend, there's rumors swirling that Caleb Cunningham, one of the top wide receivers in America out of the state of Mississippi, is ready to make a decision. Now, we don't know exactly when he's going to do it, but the experts are talking Alabama. Are you buying into the RPM machine that Alabama leads heading into this weekend?
Yeah, Bama Online, Andrew Bone and Joseph Hastings has an RPM, and I've got an official BOL prediction that Caleb will choose Alabama when he commits. Again, the question's kind of been when. I think Alabama gained a lot of momentum with their official visitor. Again, a very elite prospect. They're looking to add to a small class. They got Ryan Williams last year, who technically should have been in this class. So they're looking to add at least a few key guys, and I think Caleb certainly fits the bill. He's the prototypical wide receiver. He's got speed. He's got playmaking ability. He's got size. But I think everything's leaning to Alabama right now. I mean, obviously, if you're an Alabama fan or an Alabama coach, you want to get that behind you. No official date yet, but we keep hearing that that's decision's coming up. And Caleb himself said sometime in July. Well, we're in July.
And it is some time. Caleb Cunningham, maybe one of the wild cards for me. And I do agree with the experts right now. If I had to put a pick in, it would be Alabama heading into this weekend. But Caleb Cunningham doesn't say a whole lot. And you got Auburn, you got Tennessee, you got Florida, you got Mississippi State. You got a lot of teams that would love to have him. So we'll have to see what happens as we head into this weekend, see if he announces a decision. Let's stay in the state of Mississippi, where we got Akylyn Dear, the number 2 running back in America. Now, you were on this show a couple weeks ago, right after he decommitted from Ole Miss. That was big, and we thought, hey, Bama might pick him up real soon. Well, it's been about 2 weeks since then. We haven't heard a whole lot. What's going on with Akylyn Dear?
Yeah, I think it's status quo with him. These kids do it different. Some just straight flip, some decommit, take more visits. You saw Ivan Taylor, who can flip from Notre Dame to Michigan, take multiple visits, including to Alabama. So I guess it's to each his own. I think it's the same situation, though, where we kind of knew it was coming. Alabama was trending, and even his commitment to Ole Miss caught a lot of people by surprise. It kind of came out of the blue. Alabama had been recruiting him for a while. Robert Gillespie, again, while it's a new staff and a head coach and a lot of the assistants, Robert Gillespie's been recruiting AK for several years now since he was at the Alabama staff and retained. So that relationship was there. Still feel like Alabama's did a good job. And he's a guy that's got to set a date, and he could just pop up out of the blue also. I mean, out of the blue being, in a 24-hour window, nobody really just goes anymore and catches it off guard, I don't think. But I think he's one closing in sooner rather than later on the decision.
Yeah, but sometimes these guys from Mississippi, they're a little bit more low-key. They don't really enjoy the spotlight on them. So I could see both Caleb Cunningham and Akylyn Dear maybe doing a little surprise commitment at some point. So we'll see. There's one more prospect on that Bama hit list that I want to talk about. One more player that I think could help them get to that number one spot, and he's in the state of Texas, and that's Tai Haywood, 5-star offensive tackle. And he's another one that took one of those June officials, and the experts were feeling really good about the idea of him heading to Bama. But, it's been about 3, 4, 5 weeks since we've heard from him. What's the latest on Tai Haywood and his decision?
I think that time is relative when it comes to Alabama because they had so many commitments. Once Keelan Russell on June 4th, he committed. It just seemed like they were coming, basically every day, sometimes, 2 days in a row. So it's been a while. I think Alabama did a good job there. I think FSU's battling really hard. The guy's a very elite talent. He's a guy that never really set a date. So, once a guy's set a date, when they don't set a date, he's a guy that can take his time. But what he would mean to the Alabama class is this would put this offensive line group right there near the top, possibly the best on paper offensive line class ever signed at Alabama. And that's, of course, on paper before the season started. Nick Saban obviously Signed a lot of really good offensive linemen during his career there too. But I mean, you're talking about three. This will give him three of the top 30 players in the country who are offensive linemen, with Jackson Lloyd and Michael Carroll, who's now a 5-star. So that would be a really elite group. I'm still battling there for him. Still some recruiting left to go, and I'm curious to see if he pops up anywhere in that open period. That was that 4 or 5 day window they've got in July. That could be telling.
Yeah, at the end of July, we'll have to see if Tai Haywood pops up anywhere. We're going to talk about two more wide receivers, Derek Meadows and Cleek Lockett, here in a second. But what do you think of this Alabama coaching staff? I mean, to be at the halfway point of the recruiting cycle and to be within a commitment or two of jumping Ohio State for the #1 class, what's kind of stood out to you, Tim, about Alabama's recruiting efforts this spring, summer?
The speculation was what it would be like after Saban. A lot of people said nobody would want the job. They wouldn't, and then when, of course, you get the guy that was in the national championship game, he didn't know how to recruit the South, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. You can recruit. If you can recruit, you can recruit. They can put you in any country in the world and you'll be able to get talent. And I think that's what this staff has done really well. But it starts with effort. I mean, their spring practices with the recruits that came through, that's unprecedented as far as I'm concerned, the number of guys that came through. Their June official visitors were so big. Every week they were getting double-digit visitors and landing double-digit commitments. They had 2 guys, a punter and Micah DeBose, who committed during their official visit on a Saturday. Couldn't even wait to get to Sunday where you traditionally meet with the coach. They were just ready to rock and roll. So I think relationships, effort, and of course the Alabama's a brand. It's always been a brand. It always will be a brand. But those 3 things together, I think, has really paid dividends for them. And I'd be curious if there's any Alabama fan who thinks Alabama isn't in better shape today than they expected to be 5 or 6 months after Nick Saban retired.
Yeah, no, good point. All right, let's talk Derek Meadows and Cleek Lockett. Cleek Lockett is going to make a decision about 1 month from today. I believe it's August 7 is the commitment date for Cleek Lockett. But Derek Meadows out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas is set to make his decision on Saturday. He's a 6'6", 210-pound wide receiver. Not a whole lot of those size wide receivers going around this country right now, Tim. So what do you make of Derek Meadows and Cleek Lockett? Who do you think Bama has a shot at? Are they both long shots? How do you see this?
I think Bama's battling LSU for Meadows. Moving up his date's interesting because I know LSU wants to add another wide receiver. They got the #1 quarterback in the country. Bama, again, was going in for a small class, but they wanted a very talented class. So Jamarcus Shepard's did a really nice job of setting up the board. You mentioned Cleek Lockett. He's another guy I think that would actually fit in more than Meadows. He's that prototypical NFL guy as well. Probably not as fast as Caleb, but his ball skills and that elite Texas talent that he's got with him. So he's got some really good options. I think with Lockett, you're looking at Texas, and I think with Meadows, you're looking at LSU right now. It's still a long way to go. I mean, 4 weeks is forever for Lockett, right? You still got some time to figure it out with Meadows, but still a lot of recruiting to be done. And in the NIL age, I mean, it's never really done until the kid announces, and then maybe not even then.
Yeah, and like you said, you do have that open period at the end of July. We could see Cleek Lockett potentially in Tuscaloosa for a visit before that August 7 decision date. So there is a lot of time left on Cleek Lockett.
You can see him at Texas or FSU, whatever. These guys, there's a reason we've always said follow the visits.
Yeah.
Because those things kind of tell the tale. The words don't mean a lot. A lot of distractions and trying to throw us off the scent, but the actions tell a lot. And that window's open, and you can't really take 5 or 6 visits in that window like you could in June. You're going to have to narrow down where you want to go.
All right, Alabama fans, talk to us. How do we feel about these upcoming commitments? Who do you think end up on that Tide commit list? Let us know. Comment section below. Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.